Hello, sisters. Welcome to the Sacred Medicine podcast, weaving powerful, soulful practices into functional medicine. Step into this beautiful space of devotion and explore everything from nurturing foods, rituals, sexuality, and awakening your innate sensuality. It is time to own your radiance. This is the Sacred Medicine podcast. We are back for another week of the Sacred Medicine podcast. I am your host, Margaret Romero. And this week we have Ashley Leavy. She is the founder of the Love and Light School of Crystal Therapy. Now, I don't know about you, but I love me some crystals. So I do use them on a daily basis. I have many of them on my altar, which I have in my bedroom. I also tend to maybe carry one or two with me, either in my purse. I don't really tend to carry them on my body unless I'm wearing a crystal necklace. But aside from that, sometimes I'll just have one in my purse, but I definitely use them during my morning prayer and meditation. And I usually tend to hold them in my hand. And I have several, so they all have their own sort of usages. But today, so I think you'll actually, if you're interested in crystals or you've thought about it or you've dabbled in it, I think this will be a really great episode for you because we talk about so many things and you'll learn so much about crystals. So we talk about sort of how to use it. There's so many different ways to use crystals. We also talk about crystal grids, which I really wasn't that familiar with. And so I learned so much from it. And we talk all about like why you would use the grids, how to use them, and where you're placing the crystals in a grid form will determine like what you're actually what your intention is or what you're trying to manifest. And so I love that you can position crystals in a particular way in order to help manifest what it is that you're desiring. Let's see. What else are we talking about? We talk about using them with your pets. We talk about pendulums, how to use them, when to use them. Typically, people will ask questions when they use the pendulum. I've used those as well in the past. I still use them now and then, but I don't necessarily use them. I don't really use them very, very often. Also, another popular question is how do you cleanse your crystals? This is really important because also, on a side note, I really don't want people touching my crystals necessarily because I feel like they leave their energy on them. And even if I don't have anyone touching them, every month there is a special way to cleanse your crystals. So we talk about that. And then we also talk about oracle cards. And so I also tend to use those at times when I am sitting in front of my altar. I have several different decks of cards that I use. So I hope you enjoy this. It gives you a little bit of everything on how to learn how to use crystals. My crystals are very special to me. I really connect with them. And after a while, it doesn't take that long to connect your energy with the crystal. I use it. I love it. I love it. So I hope you love this conversation as much as I did. On to the show. All right, we are back for another week of the Sacred Medicine podcast. And today our special guest is Ashley Leavy, and she is an expert on all things crystal. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Oh, thanks so much for having me.
So tell me a little bit about what first got you into just so interested in crystals and its usage and all these different modalities that you use it for.
Yeah, for me, in all honesty, it started when I was really little. I spent a lot of time with my grandparents, and my grandpa is super into all things in the natural world. He loves plants and animals and minerals, and he had a really large crystal and gemstone collection. And we would sit up in his study for hours and hours in the summers, and he would tell me all about his different crystals and where they came from and
Mm,
what they were used for. And he had this like really kind of scientific approach to it.
right.
And he gave me a book that was, I think it was the Smithsonian Institute Guide to Gems and Minerals. And in there, it discussed the history and legend and lore of crystals. And that was kind of my first kind of view into this whole other world of crystals, and that they had these healing properties and had been used by people throughout history. And it was so interesting to me. So I really studied that kind of on my own for a number of years. And all the way back in 2007, I took my first professional crystal healing training. And it was so powerfully transformative for me that I knew it was something that I wanted to share with other people. And I thought that that was going to be through doing crystal healing sessions. And at first, that's what I did. But eventually, that kind of evolved into teaching. And that's something that I just can't imagine not doing at this point. It's been really, really fulfilling.
Oh, I love it. So some of the things that I saw that you did were you combined, I saw Reiki, a crystal Reiki class, which I've never seen before. And I'm actually trained Reiki practitioner, level 2. And I've never seen it combined with crystal. So how would you use it in that way?
Yeah, so actually, the crystal Reiki program that I teach is a little different than traditional Usui Reiki. It still uses attunements and symbols, but it's a system that was created by a man named Jeffrey Cady. And so there are 15 symbols in the crystal Reiki tradition, but I also teach a class called Using Crystals with Reiki, and that one is about combining crystal healing with traditional Usui Reiki, which I think most people are more interested in because there are so many amazing Reiki healers and practitioners and Reiki masters out there. So there are several ways that you can do this. One way is to actually take the Reiki symbols and program them into your crystals. So you can take your finger or a crystal point, or you can just kind of visualize this. But I like to kind of draw the Reiki symbol above the crystal and kind of picture or visualize that that Reiki symbol is being placed inside of the stone. And so then you have this crystal that combines that crystal energy with the energy of the specific symbol. I'd say that's a really popular way to do that.
Oh, I love that. Okay, I've never heard of that before. I can see how
Yeah.
that's so then once you do that, then what do you do with the crystals? Are you placing them on the person?
I would say, yeah, that's the most common for a Reiki practitioner. That's the most common way for them to use them. You can then take those crystals and create a crystal layout where the crystals are placed on and around someone's physical body. But you could even just do this for yourself, place them on your own body, carry them around in your pockets. Just kind of being surrounded by that energy can be so positive. So you could even set them up on your altar or in your sacred space or somewhere that maybe your family spends a lot of time in your home, like your living room or your kitchen. That's a great way to just have that energy around.
Oh, that's really cool. Okay, I love that. So but let's say though someone is not into Reiki, they don't know about Reiki, then how else? Give us some uses of when people can actually use crystals at home and maybe a couple of different types of crystals that would be beneficial.
Yeah, so this is a question I think a lot of people have when they first start getting into crystals. They, end up at a rock shop or a metaphysical shop, and maybe they're really drawn to a specific crystal. They feel really, really called to that labradorite or that amethyst, but they don't exactly know why. And they get it home and they think this is so great and they read up all about what it can do. But when it comes down to actually working with it and using it, they're kind of at a loss. And this is like where a lot of the information about crystals kind of stops, but where the potential is really kind of missing. So I'm going to give you just a list of a few quick ways that you can work with these stones. So the first and easiest is just to carry that crystal with you. to bring those properties or qualities of energy into your own aura or field. So just having that on your person, whether that's in a piece of jewelry or just in a little stone that you carry in your pocket or maybe even tuck in your bra, is a great way to keep that energy with you. But you can do other really cool things with your crystals, like meditating with them. This is one of my favorite things to do. Crystals are great amplifiers of energy. So they just help you find that place of kind of stillness and quiet and comfort and help you tune into the energy of the stone. And I think that kind of takes your connection to that crystal a little deeper, even than just carrying it around with you. But you can also place these crystals around your home. You can do this according to the principles of feng shui and place different crystals with specific properties or colors in different parts of your home according to the Bagua map. You can create crystal grids, which are these sacred geometric arrangements of crystals that can be really small and just placed on a tabletop, something that you look at often, maybe meditate with, or they can be really large and cover a whole room of your house or your entire home. And they can be used for everything from protection to manifesting wealth and prosperity. It's really up to you, but it combines crystals and sacred geometry and intention, usually to bring something into your life, bring in a specific energy. Then, of course, there are crystal layouts that I mentioned where the stones are being placed on and around your body. That's very, very common. You can do distance healing with them where you actually work with the crystals to send energy to people who maybe live far away. So it's similar to a layout, but for someone who's not there in person. You can also create gem waters with your crystals, which is kind of creating an energy infused water. And this gets a little bit more complicated. You need a little bit more knowledge and know-how because there are toxic minerals and there are different methods to prepare them. Yeah, that all gets a little complicated. But really, there are so many ways. And I guess this just kind of illustrates all the options that are available to you.
Now, tell me a little bit about these crystal grids, because I've definitely seen them and I've seen people's beautiful versions of their crystal grids. So tell me, how does that work exactly?
Sure. So a crystal grid is basically taking crystals and putting them in a special arrangement or pattern that follows a specific sacred geometric shape. And I'd say this is the most common kind of crystal grid. And the reason that we do this is because sacred geometry is the language of the universe. So if there's something that we want to call into our life, something that we want to manifest into our life, and I don't just mean manifesting like The Secret. I mean manifesting more health, more love, more forgiveness, more creativity. It can be anything, not just prosperity and abundance, although of course they work great for that as well. When we want to ask for those things from the universe, it really helps to speak in the universe's own language. So although we can put this out there in our own words in terms of affirmations or intentions that we're setting, when we actually take that and apply the laws of sacred geometry, we're communicating that in the language of the universe. So, for example, say I wanted to manifest more health in my life. The first step to creating a grid is setting your intention. So I might create an affirmation for myself, kind of framed in the present. So I am a whole, healthy being and my physical body is nourished and healthy. It could be something really, really basic, or it could be super specific. Say you are having problems with your liver or you have migraine headaches. There are so many ways that you can really tailor that affirmation specifically to yourself. But I really like to focus on the positive attributes, being rather than focusing on the migraine headaches, talk about being, whole and healthy and perfect and free from pain, things like that. So once you've set your intention and you've decided what your purpose is for your crystal grid, why on earth you even want to make one, the next step is to select your sacred geometry shape, this thing that's going to help communicate that to the universe. So there are lots of different shapes you can work with. I think the most common are the seed of life or flower of life, which are very common in sacred geometry because these have kind of this infinite capability for manifesting. So they're pretty universal. They work for anything that you want to call into your life. But you can look at other shapes as well. So if I were doing something for physical health, I might want to pick a square because squares represent stability. They're related to the root chakra, physical healing. So I might choose to make my grid in the shape of a square to communicate that energy of health and healing and stability to the universe. Then, after you've set your intention and you've chosen your sacred geometry shape, you pick the crystals that support that same purpose. So again, going on this theme of health, I might pick something like red jasper for physical vitality or bloodstone for a healthy physical body. I might pick something like serpentine to support my immune system. You can really customize this again according to your purpose and which crystals connect with those energies. Then it's just a matter of taking those crystals and putting them into the shape that you've chosen in step number 2, where you picked that sacred geometry shape.
Oh, okay. And so how long now are you doing this sort of as a ritual? Are you, I mean, you're picking a spot where it's going to be, how long is it going to be there for?
I'm so glad that you brought this up because I think this is the part of working with crystal grids that a lot of people forget about. So this isn't just set it and forget it. You don't just, create this
Right.
grid, shove it off in a corner, and that's it. Like this is really about co-creating with the universe. So once you create that grid, there's this process called activation, where you energetically link or connect all of the crystals in that grid together so that they're working together in harmony. And you can do that through your intention. You can do that by using a quartz point or a selenite wand. And you basically physically draw out these little connections between all the crystals. Now, once you've activated your grid and it's ready to be used, it's really up to you to kind of hold space for this. So I recommend at least once a week, if not daily, to sit with your grid for a few minutes, really contemplate its energy, think again about that intention or affirmation that you created and what it is that you are trying to bring into your life. And it's this time that you set aside to really create space for this in your life that I think the change starts to happen. So in terms of how long to leave it up, it really depends. Some grids are really short term, like maybe I want to create a grid to help me with a specific meditation that I'm doing right now. And so I might create that grid before my meditation. And after my meditation is done, I take it down. Or maybe this is something more long term, like I'm trying to manifest a new career in my life, or I'm trying to focus on self-love and forgiveness. Those might be longer term things, or my grid stays up for a few weeks or even a few months.
Okay. And is it been more beneficial to do it on full moon or new moon?
I do think that there is a certain energy that the moon lends to all crystal work that can really enhance it. So I actually just wrote a book about this that is released today. It's called Cosmic Crystals, and it's all about working with your crystals and lunar energy. And in that book, I talk about the different phases of the moon. So working from the new moon through the different 8 phases, working your way around to the full moon and then back to the new moon again. So the new moon is a time for new beginnings, for planting the seeds of things you'd like to manifest, for starting fresh and really setting intention for something that's important for you later on. The full moon is kind of the height of our manifesting power. It's where we reap the rewards of our hard work. It's also a time for releasing things that are no longer serving us. So I think depending on what your specific purpose or intention is for your grid or for any of your crystal work, if you do want to incorporate lunar energy, it can be really beneficial to kind of time that out, or at least if you don't, say, create your grid during that phase, really making time to sit with your grid in meditation or ceremony or ritual on that specific day of the moon, the new moon or full moon, can be really helpful.
I really like that. Okay. And so I've seen these particular grids. How do people know what grid to use? Is there like a book to buy? You just Google, like, if you want to manifest money or a new job, is it, because you had said health was a square. And so are these other sort of geometric shapes something that, like, are there a ton of different geometric shapes, or is there just a handful?
I'd say that, yeah, there are quite a lot that people use. So there are, like I mentioned, the seed of life and flower of life are really useful for manifesting. There's the shape known as Metatron's cube, which is really good for anything that's high level spiritual work. There's the Sri Yantra, which comes from Hinduism. We can look at so many different spiritual traditions and paths, and one thing that many of them have in common is that there's some type of sacred geometry or some type of geometric symbolism that they call upon. And so you can incorporate those into your grid work. You can work with traditional shapes like triangle, square, pentagon, hexagon, and kind of look at what those shapes mean. Often the number of sides that they have will correspond to a number in numerology, and that is kind of the energy that they display. For example, like a triangle has 3 sides. So if we look at the 3 in numerology, that's all about transformation and cycles and new beginnings. And so that can be a really powerful shape for that. 4 is stability, like I mentioned with the squares. So it has to do with health and career and protection. 5 is another number of transformation, but it also has to do with our connection to the natural world. So there are these kind of traditional correspondences. And I would say that there are quite a few really good books about crystal grids out there right now. Philip Permit has a great book about crystal grids. So does Judy Hall. I would highly recommend both of those. But also, I teach a class all about crystal grids because sometimes this is something that you really want a little bit more kind of hands-on understanding of. And one of the things we really dive into are those different shapes and how to choose the right one for the work that you're doing. But you know what? This is the cool thing about grids. It doesn't always have to follow that sacred geometry. Although, yes, that's traditionally what we think of when we think of a grid because it's speaking in that language of the universe, that sacred geometry language. There are also intuitive grids where you just kind of listen to your own inner guidance and arrange the crystals in a way that feels good to you or is pleasing to you. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that either, because when you really tap into your intuition and listen to that, sometimes you can create something so much more powerful than if you were following a set recipe or set of rules.
Okay, great. Thanks for explaining that. I never really knew how that all worked. So thanks. Sure. I also see that you work with crystals and pets.
Yeah, that's a big part of what we teach in my advanced crystal practitioner program. I am such an animal lover, and I think that this is one of the reasons that many people start to open up to crystals. You know, when our fur babies are sick or under the weather, of course, the very first thing to do is take them to the vet. But because veterinary care, especially in the United States, is lacking that really holistic approach to healing where we're working on the physical level and the energetic level, I think a lot of people turn to more holistic based approaches to health, their own health or the health of their pets. And so we look at things like gem waters, and we look at things like flower essences and tinctures and crystals. And I think anything that we can do to support ourselves, our friends, our family, our pets is so, so helpful. And crystals are one of the things that are really easy for pets. I find that so many animals, if you're working with crystals, they'll naturally be drawn to come over and just kind of be in the energy of those stones. So keeping a crystal maybe near your pet's bed or somewhere that they spend a lot of time, or there are even, like on Etsy, there are so many sellers that have these cute little clip-on pet charms that are made of crystals. That's a great way to help your beloved animals get some crystal energy as well.
And so is it like if they're sick, you would use it, something that would help them? Is that the type of thing that by just placing a particular crystal around them?
I think that that's one way that many people tend to work with them. I really like to look at kind of a broader approach to crystal healing. So not just what's going on physically, but kind of peel back the layers and find out what's going on underneath that. What are the root causes of what's happening? So, for example, maybe a pet has a physical symptom like hot spots, right? That's like a really common one, especially for dogs. Maybe they're chewing and they get those little scabby sores, those little hot spots, and that can be really uncomfortable for them. So we can work with crystals to energetically support that animal through the healing process as well as whatever we're doing with our veterinarian. But if we look at this in like a deeper way and we take that more holistic approach, we also need to ask what's going on behind that? What's going on underneath those layers? So is this because your pet is anxious or they have separation anxiety? So why are they maybe chewing? What's the cause of these hot spots? And really looking at maybe some crystals to help relieve anxiety would be really beneficial, because then we're not only taking a symptom-based approach to healing, but we're really taking a deeper kind of energetic supportive role as well.
That's so great. Thanks for that. Let's see. And so I've used pendulums for a really long time, and it looks like you also, is that something you teach as well?
Yeah, we do definitely talk about working with pendulums. And I'm one of those people, if I try and use my pendulum for divination, which means maybe asking questions and getting answers or guidance, I have such a hard time with that. I think I'm so kind of strong-willed that my pendulum will just move however I'm thinking it should move, whatever I want the answer to be. So for me, that's more of a difficult one. But what I really love pendulums for when it comes to crystal work is using them to help understand what's going on in someone's energy field. So holding them over each chakra and asking whether or not that chakra is in balance or in alignment, finding out how the energy is moving through a particular area of the body, finding out how the energy is moving or not in a space or environment. And really using it as more of a diagnostic tool to understand energies, I think is really beneficial. And I like using crystal pendulums for this, so pendulums that are actually made from different types of stones, because they're such good amplifiers of energy. So I personally work with clear quartz and copper pendulums because the clear quartz is such a good amplifier and the copper is really conductive. So I find that makes them really sensitive energy detection tools. But I always recommend, like for my students, to find a pendulum that they feel really connected with. So for you, if that's amethyst, if it's rhodonite, if it's emerald, go with what you're drawn to, because when you listen to your intuition, you really can't go wrong.
Right. I found that I've had a pendulum for a really long time, and I don't really let anyone touch it. Is it like a thing? Because I feel like I don't want anyone else's energy to get on it. Is that true?
So I think that's definitely a thing for some people. And I think that, again, it's really comes down to your intuition. And if you feel like you want that to be a personal, private tool just for you, then you should totally honor that. I personally don't mind if my pendulum is handled by someone else because I can always cleanse it. I'm big on cleansing and keeping the energies like really vibrant and really positive. So I'm kind of okay with that, but I totally understand, and this is a really commonly held belief by a lot of people, that you should keep those tools just for yourself. And I think this is most true of items that we see for divination, like pendulums, tarot cards, crystal balls. There's always this kind of idea out there that because these are these really powerful personal tools, they shouldn't be imprinted with the energy of other people. And I think if that's what feels good to you, then honor that. Because you know what? If they're your personal tools, you don't have to share them around. You don't have to let a million people handle them or touch them. Just do what feels right.
Yeah, thanks. I have one in my office, and I also have one at home. So I like keeping them separate, but I certainly will cleanse them if someone does handle it. Which is fine. And I usually will What's actually let's talk about that. What's a good way of cleansing them?
Yeah, so there are so many ways that we can cleanse our healing tools, whether they're crystals or tarot cards or pendulums, whatever you might be working with. Of course, burning sacred herbs is probably the most popular. So burning things like sage or Palo Santo. But as many people are becoming aware of, these plant medicines are becoming a bit overused. And I think too many of us are too quick to turn to this method of cleansing. And I really like having some other methods of cleansing as well. So, one of my favorites personally has become sound. So, I'll actually work with bells or chimes, or my favorite tool for this is my singing bowl, because sound vibration is so powerful that it can really clear energies. This is often used in feng shui. So, sound will be used to clear a whole space. And I really love this because, similar to burning sacred herbs, you're not just cleansing your tools, but you're cleansing your space, you're cleansing your own energy field. And I just find it's really multi purpose. But of course, there are so many other methods out there of cleansing pendulums, cleansing crystals, like running them underwater or burying them in salt or burying them outside in your yard in the earth. And although I think that these are valid methods of cleansing, I don't think that they're always super practical. So I really like, burning sacred herbs and passing these tools through the smoke or using sound.
Do you ever put it into the moonlight? Is that a thing?
Yeah, a lot of people will refer to that as charging. So you can do this to cleanse your crystals, but I think the main reason most people do this is to charge them. And although I've really done a lot of soul searching about this over the past 12 years that I've been working with crystals professionally, and I used to be so by the book, and I was taught that you need to cleanse your crystals and then immediately charge them up with energy. But what I found is that, in all honesty, I don't feel like crystals really need charging. I feel like they have so much amazing energy already. I don't think that crystals can really become depleted of energy. I do think that they can become kind of cluttered up with outside energy, which is why we need to do regular cleansing. But in terms of the charging, I don't think it's super necessary. But what I do think is I feel really good when I have a little bit of time out in the moonlight or the sunlight. So it must be a nice thing to do for my crystals too. So although I don't view it as this, thing like there's a meter of energy on each crystal and it runs out and I have to charge it back up, I do view it as a really nice, respectful way to treat my healing tools.
Okay, I love that. Thanks. Let's see. Oracle cards are something that I use often too. How do you use them with your oracle cards?
Yeah, so I love keeping a little piece of selenite or a piece of carnelian in with my oracle cards to keep the energy of those cards clear. So just like we talked about, cleansing your pendulum, you may want to always kind of cleanse your cards. And I find that keeping a selenite or carnelian in with my decks helps keep the energy really clear between uses. So I really like that. Often when I do little oracle card readings for myself, which I do really frequently, I will incorporate some crystals into the mix. So, of course, a lot of the oracle decks that I own personally are crystal themed, and I really like working with that because I really know the crystals well and can kind of get a little deeper interpretation out of my cards that way. I will even incorporate crystals into like a tarot card reading. So if I'm working with a tarot deck or an oracle deck and I do a reading and pull some cards, I might also reach into a bag of crystals and pull a crystal as a type of oracle to kind of give one overarching theme for the reading. Or if I do a reading for someone else, I might recommend a crystal that really supports what they might need over the next short period of time to support or bring in the energies that the cards are indicating.
Oh, I really like that. So before a reading, you'll sort of pick a crystal that you have in a bag.
Yeah, and that kind of gives like a theme, or you know how sometimes when you're doing a reading, there are so many different ways to interpret the cards that you're pulling.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, pulling that crystal in the beginning gives me a really clear focus. So say I pulled a citrine, that for me might indicate like prosperity, money, finances. So I'm going to interpret those cards based on the fact that they're probably indicating something to do with that person's finances. Or if I pulled
I see.
amethyst, yeah, it might have to do with spirituality. If I pulled rose quartz, it might have to do with love and relationships.
Okay. And now I don't have any oracle cards that are at all crystal related. What are some of the ones that you really like?
So I'm a little biased because I've created a few of my own
Oh,
decks.
you have? Okay.
Yeah, I have a crystal grid oracle card deck, and I have a new deck that is my crystal moon mystic oracle, and that one's really cool because it combines crystals with the different moon energies. So that one's really fun for me because I love all things to do with the moon. But there are so many good ones out there. There is a deck by Judy Hall that I believe is called the Crystal Wisdom deck. It got published under two different names, one in the UK and one in the US, but I think it's the Crystal Wisdom deck. I really like that one. There is Naisha Asian's deck, the Crystal Ally Oracle. That one's really beautiful. And I find that Naisha's descriptions are so good. There's also one that I think you can, it's not like a mass produced one, but it's by the Lavish Earth. And I think it's just called maybe the Lavish Earth Crystal Oracle. That is one of my favorites because it's so gorgeous.
Okay, I have to check those out.
Yeah, and if you're more of a tarot person, Philip Permit has a great crystal tarot deck.
Okay, great. All right. Let's see what else I wanted to ask you. Um, and so how do you use your crystals on a daily basis?
Yeah, so I definitely have kind of my own little mini rituals built into the day. So in the morning, sometimes before bed, but often in the morning, I like to pull an oracle card that just kind of sets the theme for the day. And like I said, I'll often pull a crystal to accompany that, just to give me that kind of more direct way to interpret that card. Um, at the end of the day, right by my bed, I have a large slab of selenite as well as a little selenite bowl, and I'll usually take my jewelry off and place it on the selenite pieces to cleanse it overnight while I'm sleeping, so that when I wake up the next day, everything is charged up, cleansed, and ready to go. I also will meditate with my crystals, and this is something I try and do every day. This is kind of one of my non-negotiables. Of course, I'm not a perfect human, so I do miss days here and there, but at least like a 10-minute meditation. And I'll often have some crystals that I'm either holding to kind of connect to those energies, or just around in my sacred space, so that I feel really connected to spirit during that process.
Mm.
Sometimes I'll maybe place one over my third eye or hold one over my heart. That just feels good to me. Of course, wearing crystal jewelry. And like I said, I put this like on my selenite every night, and then put my jewelry, like mostly my rings and maybe a necklace, back on when I wake up in the morning. And when you do that, something so little you can do that many of us don't even think about. When you're putting on your jewelry, put it on with intention. Really think about the crystals that are in it, even if that's the diamond in your engagement or wedding ring.
Mm.
Really think about that stone and what it represents. There's a reason that diamonds are in that kind of jewelry. They're the hardest mineral, they're long lasting. So that's where we get that saying, diamonds are forever. So think about what that means in terms of your relationships and your connection with your partner, or if you have a different type of crystal that you're wearing in those little stretchy power bracelets or in a pendant. Really put those on with intention and think about what that crystal represents when you put it on.
Oh, okay. I love that too. So how do you, when you go to bed at night, then how are you cleaning your jewelry? Are you putting them in, are you cleaning them with water? Because you said that they were clean the next day.
Right. So selenite is a stone that's kind of a soft mineral and it's really known for its cleansing and purification abilities. So I have a big slab or kind of like a slice, almost like a flat plate of selenite and then also a small bowl. So I'll put all of my rings in the little small bowl and then like any necklaces, bracelets, that kind of thing onto the slab or plate. And so just a few hours being on that piece of selenite or in that selenite bowl will actually cleanse and purify your crystals or your jewelry. So there's usually like one in my bra,
Mm.
one in my pocket, and I'll
Okay.
pop them there as well.
Okay, what a great idea. All right, and do you sell crystals also on your website?
Yeah. Yeah. I have loveandlightschool.com is our website for my school where I teach all of these classes online and have my books and oracle card decks and things like that. But I also do have a bricks and mortar metaphysical and crystal shop in Madison, Wisconsin called Mimosa Books and Gifts. And you can find us there at mimosaspirit.com. And we have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of crystals available there.
Oh, wow. Okay, so I'm going to add this to the show notes. Mimosa, can you order online?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, okay.
Mimosaspirit.com. And if there's something you're looking for you don't see listed on our website, chances are we probably have it. And we just haven't listed it yet. So you can always contact us through there as well. And if we have something like what you're looking for in stock, we can send you pictures and prices and all that good stuff.
Oh, okay. Great. And what about, are you on Instagram or social under?
Yeah. Yeah, you can find us pretty much anywhere using the handle at Love and Light School. So you can find me on Insta under that handle, also on Facebook. We have a great YouTube channel if you want to learn more about crystals, as well as a podcast called Love and Light Live, and a great blog.
All right, let me end the podcast. Great. And YouTube. Okay, perfect. So I'll include that all and all the links to it in the show notes. Let's see. Was there anything that you wanted that we actually didn't address that you thought would be really helpful that people can easily use?
I don't know. I think we covered some really good topics. I'm thinking about like my most common questions. I think that probably covers them, like cleansing and charging and ways to use them and what the heck are crystal grids. I think that pretty well covers it.
Oh, this is so great. This is so great. There's not a crystal shop near me, but there's one in Manhattan I think it's on Fifth Avenue. It's a huge, enormous crystal shop, but it's like one of those places that they have huge pieces.
Yeah,
I mean, they do have the little ones too, but they're extreme. It's like the extreme.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the nice thing about us. We're in the Midwest, so we have really good quality. I handpick everything, and our prices are really low. So,
Oh, wow. Very cool. I'm trying to think of this one. I was in Santa Fe last fall, and they had these. Oh, it was called Herkimer crystals.
yes, yeah, those are from New York.
Yes, upstate. I think she said Buffalo, maybe.
Yep.
And
Yeah, Herkimer County, wherever that is.
oh, okay. And they look like kind of tiny little diamonds.
Yes, those are one of my favorites.
And so I bought I bought a bunch of them, and I'm not really sure what to do with them.
So those are really great. Herkimer diamonds are great for astral travel, for dreams and dreaming, awakening your intuition, helping you step more into your spirituality. So I have mine in a tiny little drawstring pouch, and they're in my pillowcase.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they will create pretty intense dreams, but like if there's something that you really want some guidance about, something that you need a little message from your intuition or from your higher self, your spirit, just popping those into your pillowcase overnight and really paying attention to your dreams and kind of looking up your dream symbolism the next day can be really beneficial. If you're a little afraid of them getting lost there, of course, just set them on your bedside table. That's close enough. Or just working with them like on your third eye in a meditation can be really cool.
Is it something that is beneficial? Because it came in a little tiny glass, the cutest little glass vial. And so, yes, I mean, I do already have really extreme dreams. I feel like have very vivid, sometimes nightmares. And so I'm not sure if I'd want more, honestly. That sort of scares me a little bit because I feel like they're already intense.
Yeah, sometimes we're like really drawn to those things that are like a vibrational frequency match for us, so it might not be that you need more of that, but that you were like drawn to that because you have so much of that already and it was like a vibrational match for you. But what I will say is Herkimers keep things really positive. If you're like worried about it making things more intense, you might want to look at a crystal called Howlite. Howlite. That's a really good one for like restful sleep, sweet dreams, kind of calming, all that stuff that happens in the night. And that would be a really good one to pair with it or maybe just keep by your bedside.
Oh, that's a great idea. Okay. So the Herkimer, is that something, because you said it helps with intuition, is that something that I would carry with me or not really? It's really more of a nighttime thing.
It doesn't have to be a nighttime thing, but I think it's a thing that we usually see used with like more intention. I just feel like it would be like a little intense to carry with you like all the time.
Okay.
It's just really high energy. Like I feel like it's one of those things that can be really great like while you're using it, but I think it would be like either depleting or almost like, I don't know how to explain this well, but maybe irritating. Like over time, I feel like it's just like so high frequency that it'd be that thing. Like, imagine like if you were in a room that was painted yellow. It might be really pretty for a while. It might be energizing and joyful. But if you had to never leave that yellow room, it might feel intense.
Okay. Got it.
Makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right. Well, I love this conversation. Crystals are a thing that I love, but I feel like I don't have enough time to really devote to practicing with it. And you've given us so many really cool tools and tips and ways you can easily use it. And I really like the whole grid. I've seen them and I'm like, oh, how are people, I see people also using like flowers in them. Is that also a thing?
Yeah, I mean, really, you can incorporate anything into a crystal grid that lights you up, that makes you feel joyful and happy, and that connects to what you're doing. I think that's the most important thing is think about how it relates to what you're doing. So if there was a photo of someone that you wanted to incorporate, say it was like a grid for healing and you wanted to send good energy to someone, you can incorporate their picture. If it was a grid to maybe like honor your ancestors, you could put in pictures of your family member or family heirlooms. You can incorporate flowers or herbs, specific ones that like the healing properties or attributes of. So say you were doing one for sweet dreams, you might want to incorporate some valerian or chamomile, things that like have to do with good restful sleep. But you can also just do this based on like their beauty. If just these big, beautiful, bright orange Gerbera daisy blossoms light you up, then put those in there. And you can look at it more of like a color energy kind of standpoint as well.
Okay. Oh, this is really great. Ashley, thank you so much for sharing all of your wisdom today with us. And, even for sharing your wisdom with all the people that come to you and want you to teach them how to use crystals. So beneficial. I really need to start using it much more often.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It was an absolute pleasure.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks so much and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, you too.
Thanks. So I hoped you really learned so much from this conversation. I mean, there is a little bit of everything when it comes to crystals. So I think it's a great place to get started. There's also books to show you what types of crystals are out there, which ones to buy, which ones do what. And so I do have a little book that tells me all about the crystal. I love them. I really do. So if you want to learn more about her, I think she may be having she has a school. So she does also go more in depth and teach you as well. So to learn more about her, head on over to the show notes, margaretromero.com/episode 154. And also, just wanted to mention, if you're currently not following me on Instagram, it's one of my favorite places to be. So if you love learning about healthy cooking, if you want to learn more about functional medicine or women's health, head on over to Instagram. And I try to be on there every day. And I just started doing reels, y'all. So they're a trip. I do enjoy them. And I hope you learn some things from my reels. Anyway, hope you're having a beautiful week wherever you are in this world. Thank you so much for listening in another week. Many blessings, big hugs. Speak to you all next week. Bye for now.